Hey everyone, Couch Investor here, back with Dave Lee. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. So in this part, we're going to talk about why a CEO's ambition is a very, very crucial part of looking for that 10x, for that next 100x investment. We're also going to talk about Square, Lemonade, all of that in this video. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't watched part 1, it's obviously going to be linked down in the description below or in the top right corner. So without further ado, enjoy this interview. Now, I want to go back actually to the point you made about Stripe with the team being a great team. Developers love the company. It's actually a bit like if you compare it to a sports team, like if you want to beat other sports teams, you have to have a very, very, very good team yourself to be able to beat other teams out there. I think it's the same with companies. If you think you have a great company, attract great engineers, attract great marketers, whatever, to try and beat the other company. It's great to have a good idea, but if you don't have the personnel to actually outplay and outbuild all the other competitors out there, a bit like Tesla is doing, you really have no chance into outperforming everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. I think also another kind of understood or underappreciated aspect that I'm constantly looking for in companies is the role of ambition. And I don't hear many people talking about this, but a lot of times ambition by the CEO is kind of related to this. In a way, that's the size of the fishbowl that company is in. And a lot of times the size of the fishbowl can determine the size of the fish, right? The company. So if you have a CEO and founder who has, let's say, mediocre vision and mediocre ambition of what they want to become, you're going to have some mediocre sized fish in a mediocre sized fishbowl. So it's kind of obvious, right? I can explain this to a 5-year-old, right? I can explain it to my kids and they would understand that concept, right? If you have a CEO that has crazy ambitions, right? And their ambitions just completely, dwarf, any other CEO ambitions in that industry or field, that means their fishbowl is huge, right? And the potential for that company, for that fish to grow into a big, huge fish is actually quite high. Yeah. Now you need to figure out, is this CEO and company legit? You know what I'm saying? Because they could be just a fraud. They could just be pie in the sky, just saying all this stuff. And so you need to look at their track record and say, okay, what have they done in the past? Like that's been crazy ambitious. And how did they do that? Look at their current plans. What's their strategy to fulfill these crazy ambitious plans? Look at the superiority of their product. If their product is just mediocre, then how are they going to achieve their goals, their ambition goals? It doesn't make sense. So a lot of these things have to line up. So it's kind of this, it's an interesting hack with investing rather than looking at it from, let's look at their financials and their revenue. Let's look at the P/E ratio. Let's look at their balance sheet, which is all the cool stuff and important stuff. Let's hack this thing. If you're looking for truly the outsized winners, the really the big fish, hack it for, it comes down to first principles. What is the first principle of a huge company, of the biggest winners, the decade winners? Part of the first principle is the CEO needs that decade, that crazy generational ambition and vision. Without it, it's impossible, right? And that is kind of the starting point. And I think this isn't talked about much with investing is, look at that starting point. Which CEOs have the craziest ambition, right? The generational ambition.
Yeah, the Steve Jobs, due diligence. The Elon Musk's.
Exactly, right? The Jeff Bezos. You could listen and hear what these guys are trying to do. I was listening to Jeff Bezos, 15 years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago, actually more than 10 years ago, talking about, he wants, this is actually probably almost in the very beginning days of AWS, where Amazon Web Services, where he's like, I've been studying the electrical services and utility grids and all this stuff. And in history, looking at hundreds of years, there have been special times where, like utility-like functions have come about. And he's like, the internet is one of these great opportunities. And he's like, I want to provide that utility-like function that just is the plumbing, is the electric grid for the entire internet. And at that time, no one understood what the heck is he talking about, right? Because AWS, web services, all this stuff was like, this is pre 2000, probably 8 or so,
Yeah.
right? 2005 or 2006. He's talking about this. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. Like Jeff Bezos is really on a different level. Like his ambition is crazy. I'm just like, wow, he's catching things that no one is catching, but not just catching it. He is wanting to do it. He's wanting to go for it. Right. And people say, oh, how could have people caught Amazon early on? Maybe the whole paradigm of how you analyze companies is wrong because people aren't even looking for the great companies. They're looking for just, 50 companies to diversify. But if you're looking for the great companies, then you ask the question, how can I identify the great companies? And then you can ask the question, what is on first principle thinking, what is the core of what determines the generational company? And then you're going to look at the founder and you look at the ambition, right? And then you're going to look at some other things, the strategy and execution and product excellence, et cetera. But yeah, you flip the whole paradigm of analyzing companies around, the whole goal of investing, and you've got a completely different model going on. And I mean, that's what I do. That's my channel. That's the reason why I do what I do, because I don't think people are talking about this. And I think maybe there's a little bit more people are talking about some of this, like, stuff the past year. And hopefully I've been part of that discussion too. But yeah, I think there's immense opportunity. There's risks involved, but I think there's wise ways where you can diversify in different ways. You could set aside a safer basket of assets for your retirement and treat that separately, and then have a different set of baskets where you can use it more aggressively to pursue kind of these generational, 10x opportunities.
Yeah, no, sounds about right. I think people maybe overestimate or underestimate how easy it is actually to basically analyze a company. Don't need like a major in mathematics to do so. Just look from the bottom up, CEO, CFO, what the company's vision is. Look at their website. What are they actually doing? Are the people happy there? Like maybe test out the product. I think beginning to invest, I think Peter Lynch said it as well, is pretty easy. You go, do you understand the business? You can actually go, he did it with Dunkin' Donuts, went to the shop, asked people, do they like what they eat? Do they like the coffee? Mm-hmm. Yes, no, I think it's pretty easy if people want to understand what a business is doing and what they want to be doing in the future. Now, I think you said something in your conversation with Ken, Chicken Genius, about Square, that your conviction levels are not as high as another company because you don't see maybe Jack Dorsey or the team wanting to accelerate and grow even faster than what they're doing now.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to ambition, right? I mean, like, for example, Peter Lynch, his books are great. I encourage people to read them, but I don't think he's dissecting finding generational opportunities in a first principle manner. I think he has certain pieces, but for example, I don't know if he doesn't really catch on, I think, in my opinion, to the importance of ambition, right? Mm-hmm. And how grand the scale of what their goals are, right? And what that means to the founders. And I think that, a lot of times traditional investing, they tend to be more numbers focused. It's more this traditional, analyst thing where they're not sitting down with the management for hours and hours or looking at interviews. I think that's an advantage. I think any company right now that the CEO is public, giving lots of interviews, you can kind of get a better sense of who this person is, right? What does he stand for? What are his goals? Like a great example is Elon Musk. People know his goals, right? It's pretty evident. He says, these are my goals, right? And you know what he stands for. And you could judge like how ambitious those goals are, what his strategies are, and what the products he's doing it for. And you can make a judgment for that. And I think, with Square, and part of it also is valuation too. I look at that kind of closely, and I use my own valuation approaches. And so, my investment in Square was back when it was probably around 60 or 70 bucks or something around there. So it's tripled. And and I haven't sold any of my Square. I plan to keep it for I don't know how long, but what I want to double down when I want to double down on a company and really just go for it is I want several things. You know, I want a decent valuation. I want, you know, to be super impressed by the company management, but also I want them to be the best in class, you know, in what they're doing. And I want them to have grand ambition, just crazy ambition. So they're just starting out. It just always feels like they're starting out with what they're doing. And I think, you know, Square has some of that. I'm not going to bag on Square because I think they're a great company. Their Cash App is amazing. It's getting traction. People don't understand how fast some of the stuff happens with Venmo and Cash App and how adoption happens, you know, with the masses. And they still have a lot of international expansion. I think sometimes I get, I want to say tripped up, but people get confused because I might be a little bit critical of a company and they interpret it as if like I'm critical, but that's not my paradigm. My paradigm is this a 10x generational company? Is this like the best of the best of the best company? And I might be critical if they aren't the best of the best of the best, but they might be a fantastic company. They might be even a great investment, right? But I'm just critical because I'm looking for something else, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a basket of 50 companies to hold and, you know, diversify and do all this stuff. And so my the way I look at things is just a little different. So in that sense, I think Square is a great company, fantastic in many different ways. I still hold the stock, but are they that 10x generational company that I'm doubling down? Yeah, they haven't proved that. Maybe without Stripe, if there was no Stripe, I would be more, you know, I think tempted to think that way.
What would need to change for Square for you to have that higher conviction?
Yeah, I think a lot of these things is just hard to change because first principle wise, it comes down to goals and ambition and what you stand for and how you see the world. And so this is another kind of crazy thought out there is a lot of it is paradigm, you know, which is you go down to your entire worldview because a lot of times your goals, let's say the CEO's goals and strategy and what they're trying to do ambition wise, it comes down to their view of the entire world. But your paradigm also is impacted by your values and your upbringing and so many different personal things. It's really hard to change that. Like, for example, when you look at Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars or, you know, transition the world to sustainable energy, it's like that stuff, that level of goal and ambition, it's like, where does that come from? You know, is it something that he thinks is opportunistic, will make him a lot of money and therefore he wants to do it? Or is it something more deeper foundational in how he thinks in his value system, right?
Yeah.
His world perspective, historic perspective, how he values even his own time and priorities and how he views himself, his own view on identity, right? How he views his own existence. There's so many factors involved determining his true ambition. You can have a fake ambition. You can kind of have ambition. You say that you're doing like, I want to do this and this, or this emotional ambition. But to have this really long lasting ambition that you carry for many, many years, you stake your claim and you rally thousands and thousands of people around this vision and this ambition. That's a different level. It really needs to be, you know, out of authenticity. Yeah, it's extremely difficult to change. And I don't even, you know, I think it's just, it's just extremely difficult. And that's where I think, yeah, getting to know the company founders, the CEOs that you're invested in, to me, that's so crucial.
Yeah, no, I think also for Square, you can see obviously Jack is CEO of Square and Twitter. You can actually compare like Twitter could have had a huge potential if they, I don't know, they try to monetize it, maybe grow. I think Twitter Spaces is something that has been talked about for years now, but nothing has happened. And I think with Square, they're also like a bit sluggish with maybe the direct payment, pay with Cash App, for example, is something that I would have put number one on the list because like beating PayPal at their own game is probably something that would push Square towards that $500 billion, maybe even $1 trillion in 10 years time. All of these things that are just taking maybe too much time because, I don't know, maybe the CEO is between those two companies, might have to quit Twitter to focus more on Square, or I don't know what's going to happen. But I agree with you that to have that ability to grow and be better than the others has to start with the CEO and his goals.
Yeah. I mean, actually, so I want to balance the Square discussion out a bit because Square does have an amazing vision and it's actually very ambitious. Um, and the thing that makes Square Square and makes Jack Dorsey Jack Dorsey is he really, in the deepest part of his heart, he believes in justice and
Yeah, financial freedom
opportunity.
is the goal basically.
Yeah, he wants the democratization of finances, meaning he's very, very bothered by how the poor don't have the same access to financial services
Mm-hmm.
that allow them to, let's say, improve their financial situation. And so for Jack Dorsey, he's very, very motivated to see Square as it's almost like activism, and to do it in a financial way. And it's interesting. He sees Twitter the same way, but in terms of media. So Jack Dorsey's view on Twitter is he wants it to be the democratization of media broadcasting. So if you want to, let's say, have a media broadcast presence, back in the day, you had to have a TV station or a newspaper or a
Yeah.
magazine. But Jack Dorsey's saying, hey, there's this technology where anyone with hustle and creativity and content can create a broadcast media channel and grow that channel over time. And he sees ultimately that's good. Ultimately, to democratize kind of the ability to create a media broadcast channel is good for freedoms. It's good actually, to level inequality because a lot of times broadcast determines also the size of the business. It's very related. And so Jack Dorsey is all about, that democratization, right? And to try to fight kind of inequality in the system toward justice and opportunity. So when you look at Square in that angle, it's actually very quite ambitious in a lot of ways. And it's a quite noble goal. And they're
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of great things with the Square app and all of the financial services they're adding, really helping people get access to investing and savings and all the stuff that they didn't have before. And they're doing a great job. And so I am a believer in Square, in their vision, right? And I don't want to make it seem like in any way that I'm discounting what they're
Yeah,
doing
for
because they're
sure.
doing amazing things. Yeah.
No, yeah, it makes sense. Like I think also the fact that he wants to go to Africa and see how everything works there, and maybe put Square into Africa and help those poor country like in the United States. He targeted the unbanked. Probably is going to do the same. Hopefully, doing the same in Africa. I think Square is also one. I think my top three holdings. So I do see a
Mhm.
bright future for them. But saying from an investor point of view, they might want to accelerate a bit because competition is here and even more are coming. But
Yeah.
moving now into a different company, I think we both hold in high regards, which is Lemonade. I think we both talked to the CEO. What's your thoughts on Lemonade as of today?
Yeah. So I got into Lemonade after watching the CFO speak. So as much as I was impressed by Daniel Schreiber, the CEO, and Shai Winnegard, the chief product officer, the person who impressed me the most was actually
Tim.
Tim Bixby. He just kind of presented the business model case, and he pared it down to a way where it was I felt pretty compelling. And I kind of feel bad that the video that I watched, it doesn't seem to be public. I'm tempted to just publish it, but it was a Barclays
Mm,
investor conference. It was kind of something, you know, um, online, but he kind of went over an hour, really, breaking it down. And that was the first time where I'm like, wow, okay, fine. I get it. Like
mm,
you guys know what you're doing. And a few things stuck out from that conversation was one is Lemonade is in control of their growth. They're completely just it's a switch. And it's all about how much they pay for advertising to get conversions to get more revenue. And the unit economics of those of that switch makes sense. At least according to CFO, he's like, hey, in 2 years we can make our money back of each customer we acquire, and then we get kind of this lifetime,
yeah.
revenue from the customers who stick around. And so financially, he's like, this is a no brainer. You just keep on, spending money to acquire, and you make that money back, and you continue to grow. And so it's just purely how fast they want to grow. And I think looking at it from that financial perspective, people are like, oh my gosh, how is Lemonade growing? But it's really like they could grow faster, they could grow slower. It's really, they're in control of that product. I think that's one of the big things I think that stuck out for Lemonade. The second thing is I love companies who have grand ambition, just like we were talking about earlier. And when you hear Lemonade, their CEO and also their CTO, and you hear grand ambition, right? Yeah. Like they talk about insurance companies and wanting to dominate or be one of the biggest players in this whole insurance industry, one of the biggest industries in the world. And I love that talk, it's like, that's fantastic. I'm like, that's what, hey man, like if anyone out there has found any CEO or founder that has that type of ambition, like please direct message me on Twitter. Like my DMs are open. Let me know, who these CEOs are, because I want to look into these guys, right? Who are these guys who are, who are the next Elon Musk in the sense of their ambition, the next Steve Jobs, the next Jeff Bezos, et cetera. Shopify also has grand ambitions. But yeah, when I look at Lemonade, I'm like, whoa, man, you guys talk the talk at least. Like, you guys have the ambition. So let's see if you guys walk the walk. Let's see, like, okay, what is your strategy? What is your product excellence, right? Can you defend that product superiority over time? Do the unit economics, does the business model make sense? And let's go from there, right? So that's the second thing. I think the Lemonade, it just sticks out. I'm like, oh, okay. Ambition doesn't tell the whole story, but you can't conjure that up later on. You've got to have that from the beginning. And so Daniel and Shai really shine in that. And then the third thing is I'm just using the product myself, getting quotes, and doing my own research on how people are using it and seeing reviews and all this stuff, and also getting experience through traditional insurances. Like for example, we were getting a quote. We did it through Lemonade. We did it through a traditional thing. And it was just like such night and day difference, right? I still think Lemonade still has a ways to improve their trust and brand. And I think that's one of the key things is with insurance, that's so important. You want the insurance company to be around when you need them in 10 years and 20 years, et cetera. Being a new company is one of Lemonade's most difficult challenges to overcome, because they're like, who is this company, right? Do I want to trust State Farm with my homeowners insurance, or do I want to trust Lemonade? Like, and there's going to be a point where, initially Lemonade has to counter that disadvantage by either doing a lower price or better coverage or something to offset that the brand loyalty and trust that these bigger companies have. But at a certain point, there's going to be a tipping point where people feel that Lemonade has been around long enough, they're big enough, all this stuff, they're strong enough where Lemonade can offer similar coverage and similar price, but people would choose Lemonade over because there's a better reputation for Lemonade. I personally don't think that time has come yet, right? No. There's a tipping point that I don't know whether it's going to be in the next few years or several years. I don't know the exact time tipping point, but when that tipping point comes, that's kind of the huge kind of milestone, right, for Lemonade. And up until that point, I think currently Lemonade is doing all the right things to try to get there. I actually understand the other side. I understand the people who are critical of the company, who think the valuation is too high, et cetera. I mean, yeah, that makes sense in some ways. Fair points, but on Lemonade's side, they're doing what they need to do the impossible, which is to take on an incumbent and actually match them with trust and brand. And then eventually overtaking them, it's just, they just have all the momentum in the world at that point. No one can catch them. Or there could be, people who follow them and stuff. But once they reach that tipping point, it's takeoff from there. And and so that's kind of how I look at Lemonade. I think there are definitely, I always look at things from both sides. I see great potential, but there are risk factors too. Like for example, recently the CEO and CTO, the other co-founder Shai, they've sold a good amount of their shares. And that is a concern. Some people, some bulls will be like, oh, I don't care, like it doesn't matter. But to me, I care about stuff like that. All that stuff factors in. I take it seriously. I take both sides very seriously. And they have sold a decent amount. I want to hear more about that. I want to hear why they've sold, what their thinking is. And if that's a factor.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like also from the critical side, even when people say Lemonade is just an insurance company, if you look at insurance company in the United States, those are still companies that generate $40 billion in revenue each and every year. And that's just the United States. With Lemonade, which is something very positive from my side, which is they want to be a global brand, want to be an insurance company in the United States, they want to be an insurance company in Europe. So let's say in 10, 20 years, having those $40 billion in revenue in the United States, maybe add, let's say, the same thing in Europe, that's already $80 billion in revenue each and every year. So if you're a long-term investor, it might make sense to want to dip your toes into that company. But like you said, we've talked about it in private, the insider selling. So why do you think they might sell, or why did you think they sold?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of confusion over exactly how much they've sold. And when I look at all the filings, they have sold, a good amount. And it's confusing because they hold some voting share power for SoftBank shares. And some people get confused. They think that's indirectly owned, but it's not owned by Daniel or Shai. They only have voting power. So if those SoftBank shares are sold, they get nothing from it. They have 0 pennies, so they don't have any interest, beneficiary interest in those shares. So that's clearly laid out in the filings. The only shares that they own are the shares, like for example, Daniel Schreiber owns personal shares and stuff in his limited company, Dan company. I don't know the exact current figures, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but it appears, Daniel Schreiber has sold maybe 35 to 40%, maybe of his shares. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Shai seems to be, I think it is closer to 20%, plus or minus 5%. So let's say 20 to 40% in that range, plus or minus. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. I haven't studied this closely in a month. A month ago, I went through all of the filings to look at this. But yeah, you have to ask yourself kind of why do founders sell? And there are different reasons. For example, let's say you're older and you might be retiring in 5 or 10 years, and maybe it makes sense to sell, a chunk now and to sell a bit more over time. And because what are you going to do with it anyways? Maybe you have some stuff you want to do right now, with it. But I think once it gets up to, more than $100 million, which it has with, the CEO's case, I think maybe the CEO should address it a bit.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I've got some philanthropic efforts going on. I have a foundation or something I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z for. Just create a narrative, where people can understand it a bit better. But I haven't seen. Have you seen anything like a narrative, like why they're selling?
I hope to get some answers during the earnings call, but I doubt anyone is going to ask the question.
Yeah. So, I just want clarification. Fine, if you are doing a foundation, or if you're doing something, or hey, if you wanted to buy a yacht because that was your life dream, to buy a $50 million yacht and a private jet, that's fine. I don't care where you spend your money, but I just, it would help to understand that, hey, that's been my lifetime dream to have whatever, or to have this, house on the sea or something. That's fine. But I think, if you do sell a third of your shares, please do give some, narrative, some narrative. And, so if you find that narrative, I'd love to see it. And I hope, if Lemonade, management is watching, that you do a blog post, or something about what you guys are doing with the proceeds, just so people understand, what's going on.
Yeah, because I think they did a stock offering a couple of weeks ago, and then I think Daniel sold 300,000 shares, which he now has left 50,000 or something. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe they can say something towards the earnings, why most of them like sold most of their shares recently. That would
Well,
probably
he
help.
still has in his company,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
those
in
are
his
his
then and then,
shares.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but those are his own shares. So those are the same thing as his
Mm-hmm.
personal holdings, basically. Yeah. So he still has, majority of his shares.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, if you compare, like if you take like all the executives together, like Shai, Daniel, I think Tim, I think another guy, I think the insurance guy also sold probably a lot of shares. So that if they can address that would probably be helpful to all investors.
Yep.
But regarding the stock offering, they did it at the right time. If you ask me, the price was high. Probably they saw an opportunity to maybe raise some cash and then grow even further this year. What do you expect them to do in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, Lemonade's strategy, they lay it out. They're doing this geographic expansion, right, into more areas, more countries, etc. And they can do that because they've got this software platform where they don't need boots on the ground. They don't need that many people. They could do it mostly automated. And then they have product expansion, which is going into term life insurance. They had just pet insurance, and they're building still their home insurance group. So there's a lot of product categories where they need to grow, and they need to find their product market fit and really try to dominate those areas. And so there is risk. Like, do you want them to go into like so many categories that they aren't focused enough to dominate in the categories that they're in, right? So you want them to grow, but you also want them to be able to grow in a way where they don't compromise their product superiority in each geographic area, but also in each product area, right? So that's kind of the balance that Lemonade has to do. But yeah, I mean, they've done so much already just in the early stages of getting their license, setting up their whole insurance companies, all their products, and trust and brand is so hard to build with insurance. And I learned this, like, for example, with Tesla, where people don't understand how hard it is to build a car brand, because a car is something you trust with your life, right? If there's a major defect, you could die. And for Tesla, that was one of the weak points early on. They didn't have history. And so people would bash on Tesla, any possibility, right? And I learned over time, like, wow, industries and places where your life depends on it, it's really hard to get established because you get attacked and you don't have a history of product excellence. And that's why, like, all these new EV companies, man, very, very slim chances, right, that these new companies have a chance. But yeah, same thing with, with Lemonade. That's their big thing. They just need to plug away, just like Tesla did in the early years, right? They need to win over one customer at a time, be better than anything else out there. And at a certain point, just like with Tesla, the trust and the brand, just there's a tipping point. Something happened probably in 2019 or something, like second half of 2019, maybe, where there was a tipping point where people like, oh my gosh, Tesla, I love it, I trust it. It's just like the whole attitude changed. And then it's just, whoa, people understand it better. And so it's a battle, and up until that tipping point, a company like Lemonade in insurance, they just need to battle it out for every customer, every new product, every new geographic expansion. So yeah, I mean, they seem to be doing a good job, and just monitoring them.
Yeah, I think with Lemonade they also have a big advantage. First of all, a large chunk of their customers are first-time insurance users, buyers, and just looking at the company, just like Cash App, they attract the younger audience. Obviously, they try to attract the renters first, and then as they graduate, obviously, cost of acquisition is very low, but the premiums and revenue for in the next couple of years are probably going to grow and grow. And that's why, like you said, in a couple of years, you will see that tipping point. It's just like a flick of the button. You suddenly see a huge increase, I think so, in revenue and in growth of the company. But it will take some time. I think a lot of people right now are maybe not as patient as us, but in insurance, you need to have patience and time. Like, those insurance companies are here 50, 100 years. Lemonade is just 5 years old. So in the future, I do believe this company, and even if it doesn't become the number one insurance company in the world, being in the top 5 is big enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so another kind of angle or kind of risk factor for Lemonade um, is they entered renters insurance as their first big thing. And it was kind of this unloved and neglected insurance field. The big insurance companies didn't really want to do much in that. And Lemonade found an opportunity to really provide, decent product, sign up process, claim process at a cheap price. And other companies, it's hard to match that price because everything requires marketing and customer acquisition costs. And so Lemonade really found their footing in renters insurance, and they established their name and their brand, and that's where they got the bulk of their customers, young customers. The question and the risk factor for Lemonade is, can they reproduce that in other fields that aren't as neglected and that insurance companies really care about and want to fight over? Right. So that is a big question. And one of the reasons why I think they did pet insurance next is kind of, well, they did home insurance too, but one of the reasons pet insurance, it seems kind of like another unloved kind of thing. Yeah. Like, does State Farm really stay up late at night thinking about strategies on how to get into pet insurance? It's kind of like, oh my gosh, pet insurance, like whatever, who cares? So Lemonade loves those type of places, right? Because they could establish their foothold and grab their young customers and then bring them into the ecosystem of Lemonade products. The question comes now with homeowners insurance and with term life insurance. These areas are people, like insurance companies, care about. These are big areas. And so what can Lemonade do to, really exert and show product superiority, right? And I think they need to figure this out. And I don't know if they've completely nailed it with, for example, with homeowners insurance. They're saying, hey, we're not going to really compete on price per se. We want, to compete on quality and other things. But you have to look at it, they're at a disadvantage, right? State Farm versus Lemonade for homeowners insurance. Well, like, who's been around longer? Who's going to be along, who do you want to trust 10 years down the road? So Lemonade has to compensate. So they compensate with user experience, with ease of claims, with kind of a bunch of other stuff, with maybe, marketing to their existing customers and stuff. But, and they're using more human people. Like when we got a homeowner's insurance quote just last week, someone called us back after getting the quote because there were some issues. And so they're using more people. Like with renters insurance, it's so cheap. They don't have much margin. So it's just all automated. But homeowners insurance, they're trying to make it more, I think, more service oriented, right? More, there's a person to talk with. I think it's the right move, but they still need to figure out how they compensate with that trust and brand disadvantage they're at. Price is a big thing, especially for a person in their 20s, barely making ends meet with their apartment. They want the cheapest and, renters insurance, so the easiest too. So Lemonade has to figure out, they need to nail it. That's what they really need to do. And they need to nail homeowners. They need to nail term life. So that is the question. Are they going to nail it? So that's the question of 2021 for Lemonade. I think that's what all Lemonade investors need to look out for is, okay, is Lemonade, are they nailing? Are they really showing product superiority with homeowners and term life? This is going to show a lot about whether they can, enter more competitive markets as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's also why I'm waiting for the earnings call to see what they want to achieve in 2021, because 2020 was a pretty good year, I think, for Lemonade. They launched pet insurance. They reached that million active customers. But that's nice. But now we want to see what's next. How are you going to grow? How are you going to continue to grow? And with life, I think Shai commented on something on Twitter. It's actually something that they've been working on for a year now. Like, I think a lot of people think that life insurance policies get born in a couple of months, but I think they already know what they want to do in 2022. If they're going to car insurance, yes or no, I don't know. Daniel maybe didn't want to hint something, but I would like to see how they reach the next billion customers. How do you grow again and again and again, maybe increase the margins as well, because loss ratios is a very important factor in insurance. I think the earnings, I think, in a week or so or two, is going to be pretty important for Lemonade investors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of personally, I'm a bit cutthroat with, or high standards with some of my stuff, because, I will hold, some stuff, even though I'm maybe not happy, but it's a very small percent. With Lemonade, yeah, if they can't show me that they can dominate homeowners insurance some way, this is going to change my view of the company. They really, really need to show that they can show product superiority in homeowners insurance, also term life. Yeah. And if they can't show that, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, sure, they could be a great company still. I'm not, again, that's the whole thing. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad investment or a bad company or whatever. It's just my standard of that, 10x generational company.
Next,
exactly. Are they going to be one of the greatest companies, in our generation? That's type of standard. I changed my mind, depending on how the company executes, right? I hold them to a high standard.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we'll have to wait two more weeks to see where they're at.